Hello everyone and welcome to the Skeins and Scholars Knitting Podcast, episode 3. My name is Kara and I'm a 18-year-old high school student from Germany. And this is a podcast about knitting and every scholarly endeavor I kind of partake in, so my exams and everything I learn about in day-to-day life too. My Instagram is Kara Applepie, so if you want to follow me there, you can. And I am Kara Ellen on Ravelry, and I also have the Ravelry group of Skeins and Scholars Podcast group. So there we have right now a chatter thread with introductions and like questions can be answered there, all of that. And later on we will have knit-alongs and like giveaways happening there. Okay, so I'm wearing my The Perfect Crop Top, or TPCT, which is a pattern by Teresa Gregorio. And I knitted in FiveYarns Sock, their sock base, in the Graffiti colorway. I knit this at the end of 2017, like over the winter holidays, because I got this yarn for Christmas. I ordered it myself, but my parents paid for it, so it was kind of a Christmas present. And I got 3 skeins, and I used like less than 2, so I had a lot of leftovers. But I really like this top. There's some aspects that I don't particularly like. Like, I wasn't great at alternating skeins back then, which is why there's a line here you can see, like where I alternated skeins. I usually have that on the back, but like, I don't know, today I didn't want to put it on backwards because the back also is like just as deep as the front, so it's not really very deep, but I would like to have the back a bit higher, and for some reason at the moment it was more comfortable to wear it this way because this side is somewhat lower, I think due to washing, so I put it on this way. But I would like to make another one of these in maybe a nice yellow and do it either with some texture and short rows in the back or just short rows in the back to raise it a bit, so that isn't an issue. And also I knit my size, like there's a lot, like 7, 8, 9 different sizes. I don't know it by heart, but I knit the 3rd size, which is the one I usually use, and it had almost exactly my like bust measurement. Like, I have a 93 centimeter bust and it was 94, so it should have fit really well, and it's supposed to have a little bit of negative ease. But I went down like a half a needle size. I went down from 3.25 millimeter needles to 3 millimeter needles, and back then I knit a lot tighter than I do now, so it's somewhat tight on the arms. Like, here it's fine. It has just the right amount of ease, but I don't know, the arms are a bit tight also because I used like short circulars there, and I think I was doing them too tightly with those. But I still really like to wear it, and I think the color is great because there's like pink and greens and blacks, and I just really like it, and I think it complements my skin quite well, so that's a good thing. Yeah, and I have finished objects to talk about. My first finished object is another t-shirt, because right now I'm kind of in a t-shirt mood because it is gray and dreary outside right now, which is why half of my face is kind of shadowry. I'm sorry for that, but I know like the warm weather is going to come back and like hit us full force. It's already predicted that this summer is going to be even hotter than the last one, which was already way too hot. And yeah, climate change is really doing a thing here. Yeah, but that's why I'm knitting all the t-shirts and stuff right now, so I'm really happy to have this one finished. It is Marettimo by Caitlin Hunter. It looks weird right now because I just finished it. I just cast off like this ribbing, which took longer than it should have, but it was fiddly and small and I was busy doing other things. But yeah, it kind of pulls together there, and also like the lace is kind of rolling up and pulling together right now, and the ends are not woven in. But I will block it until next week, hopefully when the weather is nice, because I only have space to block on our balcony. And like, if it's raining, it will rain onto the balcony because the roof isn't far enough over it to cover it up completely. So I won't put it outside if it's not like really nice and sunny. So there was no point finishing this top this week anyway because I couldn't have blocked it. But I think it will be really, really nice and summery, and I love the colors. So the yarn is Vidalana by Knitcrate in the colorway Bananas, and also the contrast is Martin's Lab on the Bouncy Merino base in the colorway Hey Joe. And I got both of these on a de-stash from a nice woman from England, or the UK at least. And that's why I didn't pay as much as if I would have bought them new, which is really good because I'm on a student's budget. So I do like to buy yarn, and I'm not so poor that I can't buy any yarn, and I knit a lot, so that's kind of my priority spending wise, like next to food and stuff. But if I buy yarn, I'm usually trying to get it for quite cheap because I knit so much, I really need a lot of yarn, and so I need to be on a bit budget there. But yeah, finished object will be finished and like ends woven in block next week, and I hope I can wear it then to show you again. But right now it's already finished with the knitting, so that's great. And these are my leftovers, so I think I can do like 2 pairs of shorty socks, but I'm not quite sure. I have to still weigh them. And this one isn't great for socks because I think there's no nylon in it, so I'll see whether I will use that for socks or maybe keep it and use it in color or something, maybe even with this one. I don't know yet, so maybe. Yes. But I have another finished object, and those were the pair of Rose City rollers, which I have actually knit from the leftovers from the sweater. And this is the first one. I think I had it finished last week already. And now I've also finished the second one. So they're not blocked. I don't own sock blockers. They're not something I think is worth investing into. So I don't have any, and they will be worn as soon as I've shown them here anyways. But these have all their ends woven in, so that's great. And I think it's really fun because here I alternated skeins, so the color is kind of even all over. But here, like this one isn't so crazy with pooling, but there's some pooling. And this one really has like the spirally, stripy kind of pooling. If you can, yeah, you can see that. So it's really fun. Like one side is way more blue and purple, and one side is way more yellow. And also, because I had 3 skeins, I was alternating, like, not all 3 at the same time, but kind of changing in between 2 all the time. And so I have like 1 skein. This is one of the leftovers I have that I didn't use for the socks, which is much more green than the rest. And then I have my leftovers from the sock, which are a lot more yellow and pink. So that's why the socks aren't, like, they don't look too similar to this top just because the skein was different, you know? But I think they're really nice regardless, and I think I'll put them on once I've finished podcasting because I was waiting for them like to put them on. And I also wanted to show you the pair of Rose City rollers that I had knitted last week and finished then, because I didn't have them to show then, and now I have them. So those are like my salmon pink ones knit with thicker yarn. So this is 3mm needles and 56 stitches because this is like sport to DK weight yarn. But they're also really comfy, and I think more for like spring autumn weather when it's still kind of cold. I'm always cold, so I can wear them in the summer probably too. Like it's like my boyfriend and all of his friends, they've always found it funny, especially like his best friend who's here quite often at the moment, and he's always like, "You're so cold, why are you like sitting there wrapped in a blanket with like thick fluffy socks on and like a wool sweater," and he's standing there in like a t-shirt and short trousers, even though it's raining and like 10 degrees outside, 10 degrees Celsius. We have really different perceptions of temperature. Yeah, but also something I forgot to tell you about these. These are the first pair of socks I finished on 2mm needles with 72 stitches. That's something I talked about last week because my gauge kind of changed, and I used to knit socks on 2.5mm needles, but now I'm kind of knitting looser on those, and also I don't like my socks to be as loose as I used to, so I think I've permanently switched to this kind of knitting socks, and they're much more sturdy, and like socks are, they're not really see-through anymore. They're more like good socks, so that's great. And I will knit more Rose City rollers. That's a pattern by Mara Catherine Bryner, by the way, or Orange Knits on Instagram, if you wanted to know. I forgot to tell that before. Yeah, and I think now we're going into works in progress, and my first work in progress is a pair of socks, because I freed my 2mm needles, and I also bought new ones, so now I have 2 sets of needles that I can use for socks. And these are the Aava Socks. I think it's Aava because I was in Estonia for a year, and I think Heidi Alander is from Finland, and so the pronunciation should be like this. But they have like this nice lace repeat on like one side of the foot. So it's either on the right side for the right sock. I'm currently knitting the right sock, and in the middle of a short row heel. So yeah, great to show. But it only has it on one side, and it will be mirrored on the other sock. But I think it's really cool, and I really like this yellow yarn, which is kind of making funny stripes now, but I think it still works well with this lace pattern. And the reason I've not gotten farther than this is mainly because I'm not sure about the short row heel. I think I'll maybe be switching to heel flap and ripping back what I have here, because I don't like this kind of heel as much as I used to, I think. So yeah, completely switching up my sock recipe, switching from short row heels to heel flaps and 2.5mm needles to 2mm needles. Everything is kind of changing. And the yarn is a one-of-a-kind colorway by Julie's Handarbeiten, who's a German dyer. This is her ball band, which is kind of crinkled from being in the skein. But yeah, she has a website, which is julieshandarbeiten.com. And she like does mostly one-of-a-kind colorways, and she sells them on eBay too. So that's where I got mine, and kind of like a sale she did where each skein was only €5 because it was colorways she had for a while or something like that. So I'm really glad I got this skein for €5 and a few others, because again, being on a student budget, that's kind of great. And I'm using again 72 stitches. I had to modify this pattern because it's only in a 64 stitches size in the pattern, but I just added like I just cast on with my double pointed needles for 72 stitches, so 18 on each needle. And usually you just like one of the needles will then completely be the lace pattern, and in this case I added one like knit stitch on either side, so it's 18 instead of 16, so that's really easy. And because the rest is knit anyways, I think it's not a problem to modify it that way. I think it would be a bit harder if you would need 56 stitches, but I would then just take like the first row of the lace repeat off, and I think that would work as well. So I have not tried that, but I think it would work. And my second work in progress is a test knit I do for Stephanie Earp. And I'm pretty sure I can show it here because she also had it posted in the like testing pool or free pattern testers group on Ravelry, so it's kind of already known that this pattern is coming. And it's a t-shirt called Monarri. Again, I'm really in t-shirt mood right now, and it has kept me really long to do the cast on and like the neckline, because this neckline is worked on much smaller needles than the rest, and also done in like a herringbone pattern. So it's really fiddly, and you work every stitch twice, and it took me like a day of knitting because I also ripped back because I didn't like how my cast on kind of, it wasn't wonky, but it was too wonky for my liking, and I think it really shows with this kind of pattern. So I re-knit it after having already finished half of it, and now I'm finally onto the stockinette. So it happened much more quickly, and it's also on larger needles, and I'm on the increase rows right now, so that's coming along. And I actually splurged on this yarn because I didn't have anything I liked in my stash, and I didn't really find any that I wanted for this on eBay or in like these stashes on Ravelry that was cheaper than what I can get here in a yarn store. Because I didn't want to use like a normal sock yarn. I'm fine with something like this being in a sock yarn, but this is supposed to be really like drapey, and also I wanted something more soft because this is a bit scratchy. It's not bad, but just because this is so tight, I do feel it on my arms. So I wanted to have, especially for like the tight herringbone arm details that will be happening in this pattern, I did want it to be softer. So I looked for something like that and didn't find anything cheaper. So I bought 2 skeins. It only uses 2 skeins for my size, thankfully. So I bought 2 skeins in my local yarn shop of Wollkenspiel by Atelier Zitrone, which is extra fine merino and really soft. and it's a fingering weight, and it's a color 2211A. I hope you can read it. Hello. Please focus on that. I think it focuses, but the color is weird. And it's 2211A or Nachtmusik. So I actually have been swooning over this yarn for really long. Like, I went into this yarn shop quite often during the last couple of years. But when I actually came back from my exchange year, which was summer of 2016, we went there and I looked at this yarn because I was considering like yarn for a project. And my mother wanted to buy me some for a Christmas, no, not Christmas, birthday present, I think. Or at least I didn't have to pay the full amount for some reason. I think it was a birthday present. And I decided against this because it was like 13 euros per skein, which isn't, it's normal for a hand dyed, but I chose to go with a somewhat cheaper option. But I loved this color back then, and I always looked at it when I came back. And now I finally bought 2 skeins, even though it sent me back like 26 euros, which I would usually have bought like 5 skeins of sock yarn for 5 euros a skein. But it's fine. I'm really happy with the yarn, and I think I will really like wearing this t-shirt in the summer, so I'm glad that I chose it. And I also like this herringbone stitch is supposed to be worked in 2 colors, so it shows up more. Right now it's just the texture that you can see. But I decided against that as well, and I asked the designer if it was okay with her because it is a test knit, and she said it's fine. But yeah, I really like the modification I did. And that's actually all for works in progress, because as I said, I have one less day of filming this week because I recorded later last week. And also because I had my math exam on Friday, which I was talking about and I will talk about later. So kind of Friday was spent doing math, and the day before a bit like practicing and stuff. So not as much knitting time, but I think 2 finished objects and 2 works in progress is still pretty good. But I do have a lot of stash enhancement because last week's episode was kind of all over the place and I forgot to talk about stash enhancement completely. So this has accumulated over 2 weeks, and I participated in 2 swaps in 2 different groups. One is a German and one is a European swap group. And in the European swap, amongst other things that are non-knitting related, I received a really nice project back. This is from Norway because my swap partner is in Norway. Her name is Jorunn, and I'm really thankful for her swap package. And I really love this. It's slow fashion, and I'm really into slow fashion, so that's great. And it's the perfect size for like socks. So that's one. And she also sent me some Norwegian yarn, which is Hillesvåg Sølje, which is a yarn that Ali from Skeins often talks about. And actually I have a friend who was an exchange student in Norway. So when she visited her host family again last winter, I asked her to bring me back like some Norwegian yarn, and I asked her for Hillesvåg Ask. And she brought me like 4 skeins overall, I think, of Hillesvåg Ask. And so now I also have Sølje. And this is just 1 skein, and I don't know, I could make a really nice hat, I think, in this color. But I would like to make a garment, so maybe I will have to like bribe someone into buying it from Norway. Or I know it can be bought like in England too, but we don't have a yarn shop selling it in Germany like that will ship. So I think shipping would be quite expensive if I bought it from Norway myself. So I don't really, and also like the yarn isn't super cheap either. It's okay, it's not really expensive, but when I know what kind of colorwork sweater I want to do, then I can splurge on the yarn, but not right now. Also because I don't want to be working with like this kind of pelsull, so wool yarn, like really non-superwash wool, which is really sheepy still. It smells a bit sheepy too. So yeah, I would want to be working with that when it gets hotter, but I love the color, so that's great. And that's it for the first swap. I've also participated in a smaller swap in Germany where it was supposed to be only like 10 euros worth of things, so we didn't even have to put in yarn. But I received a skein of yarn, which is Socks That Rock. They're sock based from circa like 2007, what she wrote, and it's this color, which is really nice. I think these will be socks at some point, but I don't know when. It's really soft also because I think it's a Merino sock yarn. I already have 1 skein of theirs, but I think they changed supplier because this is more loosely plied than the one I have, which is more recent. But yeah, I really like it, and I'm really thankful to get a full skein of like hand-dyed yarn, which has been kind of, she has started to knit on it and then decided against it, so it's not fully like new, but also for like a hand-dyed yarn and a €10 swap with a lot of other things, I think it's really a lovely yarn to get. And then the big part of my stash enhancement is actually my yarn that I bought, because I bought 14 skeins for €70 on eBay, which is again €5 per skein. And I said like to my mother, pick the ones you like, or I picked out the ones I like because I wanted some really much. And then she got to pick like between the rest, which were more her colors, and she actually wanted all of them, so that's great. But I still have, I think, 8 skeins. Yeah, I have eight skeins. So 3 of them are the same color, which will definitely be in a sweater together. So this is this kind of like white, gray, black, which is really nice and neutral. And I think I'll be pairing it in like a test knit I'm doing, which I can't talk about a lot, but it has 5 different colors. So this will probably be my main color. And I will use at least these 3 as contrast, which are so cheery. Like they're all bright colors, as you can see. And I think I'll pop in another like really bright purple. I think that would look really great. But I love these. And then I have enough to make full socks with them too afterwards, if I want to. So that's great. And I think these look really like fun together, especially if I pop in another like purple one. And I also got 2 that I don't know what to do with yet. This really nice like light tealy, white, purple, like pastel-y skein. And this purple and pink and white one, which is also really nice. And I think those will be socks at some point or something similar. Yeah, so that's it for stash enhancement. So this is it for the knitting section, but I will go into scholars now. So as I told you about, I had my math exam on Friday. It was 6 hours of the exam, and surprisingly for me, I had to use almost the entire time. Like we had to hand back the exam at 13:45, and I handed it back on at like 13:30, so only 15 minutes before the exam ended. And that's not something I'm used to. Like usually, like we had practice exams for these like big Abitur exams, and those were also 6 hours, but we were supposed to finish at 13:45 then too, and I finished at 11:45 because I didn't need more time and I had a good grade. So I was thinking that would be the same like on Friday, but it took me way longer, and the exercises were so much more difficult. Like they weren't they were kind of overly difficult. I managed to do them. Like I had some where I was not sure, but mostly I managed to do them quite okay. But it was a lot harder than usually, like the exercises we had before and like the exams we wrote before. I usually was like, oh, they're easy peasy. And now it was like, oh, I'm struggling. So really a lot harder, which didn't happen with biology. Biology was like, okay, I was good in all the exams before. I'm good in this one too. And it was the same kind of difficulty. And this one was a lot harder than the ones we wrote before. And I wasn't thinking too much about it. I was like, okay, that's just because it's final exams. But now there's a petition being started, which is for, like, it's a student from Hannover, which is a city here in my part of Germany. Like, I'm in Lower Saxony. And in the state, we, like, have all over Germany, each state has centralized final exam tests. So they're not made by your teachers, but by people in a ministry. And this petition is like towards the ministry, saying that the math exam was way too hard and almost like not manageable in the time. And they already have like 7,860 people who have signed it in just less than 2 days, because the exam was on Friday. So that means, because it's more than 5,000, that the ministry has to deal with it. And actually there was a similar case in 2016 where the students also complained in this way, that the exercises were too hard. And afterwards the grading system for this exam was changed, like, so their grades were better. So I hope that that's also what will happen this week. this year, because they were really a lot harder than I think is necessary for a final exam. So yeah, that's about that. But other things apart from math is I've been learning a lot about like the funeral industry and death through watching Caitlin Doughty's videos, which I have watched for like a half a year, but now I'm like re-watching all of them and really kind of wanting to know all of that, and I'm watching the ones that don't sound too interesting for me too. And it's really interesting finding out what happens with like different kinds of burials with the bodies, and how death is kind of so distant from our lives now. Which of course death is upsetting. I don't want to die soon, and I don't want anyone in my family or my friends or really anyone to die. But it's a reality that we will all have to die, so I think we should kind of think about what we want after our death. Do we want to be buried? Do we want to be cremated? Do we want something else? Like also save the money, because it's expensive to get buried or to be cremated, like at least a few $100s. And just like be aware of our own death, because then it will not be like this shocking, awful thing that happens to us, but maybe we can plan for it, at least if it's a natural death at some point. So I think it's really interesting to learn about like death and dying and the ways we can plan for it. And I'm really glad that I found her videos. And if you want to watch them too, it's Ask a Mortician on YouTube, and she has really interesting videos, so I recommend that. And the other thing, I've been studying a bit for my English exam, which is on Wednesday. Not like for math, where I did a lot. I'm planning on rewatching like To Kill a Mockingbird, which was a book we read, and like rewatching Go East, which is a movie we saw, and we also saw Sherlock, or a few episodes of Sherlock as part of our lessons, but I've watched Sherlock at least 5 times, so I don't need to rewatch it. But also with English, I'm really confident about like my abilities to have a good grade in this exam, because like I'm also good at math, but math is like, I don't know, it's, you have to think about what you're doing, and with English, especially like with the level they expect us to have in English at my school, it's way lower than the one for math, just because we start English or learning English later. And I think my level of fluency in English is higher than what they require, so I've had like the full amount of points in every single exam we have written up to now. I have never had like a bad grade in English, so I'm really just not planning on learning all that much, because I'm confident about that. So that's also something I've been studying for. And then on Monday, the following week, when I will have already podcast, I will also write music, so that's also something I plan on studying in the next couple of days. And then I have a little break with exams, because that's the 13th of May, and then on the 22nd I have my history oral exam, which I will need to study for again. And then I'm done. That's great. I want to be done. I don't mind exams really, because I don't have to go to school. It's great. But I'm somewhat stressing up, because I plan on having 1.0, which is the best grade possible, and that's kind of stressful to be like, oh, nothing can go wrong, or I will not get to my goal. Like I can do, like, we have a system where we can do an oral exam for like the written exams to make a grade better, but I don't plan on doing that, because that's a whole nother round of exams, and I would like to have my like goal grade regardless. And I don't, if I have 1.1, I think I will still accept it. It's still a really good grade. But I do want to have 1.0, so I hope that math exam doesn't set me back too much. Yeah, but that's all about Scholars. I'm sorry that Scholars is kind of all about my exams at the moment. I plan on having it be more about general things I learn about, but right now I've really spent most of my time studying for exams, so I kind of need to talk about that. But yeah. And that's actually all for this week already. It's again a bit of a shorter episode. I don't know. It's, I think, because I didn't have as much knitting time. But I hope next week will be a longer episode. And why is the slide so weird right now? But I wanted to remind you that if you aren't already, please subscribe to this podcast, and also become a member of the Ravelry Group, because I really want to engage with you more, and we have a few more members since last week, which is great. I think we're at 5 members now instead of 1 or 2. But I really would like to have more of you here, and would be really glad to engage there. So please introduce yourself or join in the chatter, and maybe at some point we can do it along then once we have a bit more people. Yeah. So have a lovely week. If you want to ask me anything or talk to me, just like comment or message me on Ravelry or Instagram. And yeah, have a nice week and bye.